There was a huge announcement yesterday in Discord about the strategic rollout of Vulcan. And since then, there's been 24 hours of drama. So what's it all about? What are the implications? And what are my thoughts on this whole thing? That's what this video is about. So let's go.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need.
Come in, my dear friend, take a seat around my table and join me today in a cup of chamomile tea. And let me tell you, everybody needs chamomile tea today, the calming chamomile tea. That's what I need today, because it's been a dramatic 24 hours, but we'll get to that in a moment. Before we do, let me say, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, so please do your own research. So yesterday in Discord, we had a huge announcement. Now, I am not going to read you the announcement. We're all big boys and girls here. You need to go read that announcement yourself, and I will link it down below. But I will just show you the headlines. So it is Tokenomics version 3 final strategic rollout in the interest of blockchain longevity, sustainability, and to better evolve within the crypto landscape. We are hereby committing to a strategic rollout. Now, importantly, I just want to point out that another term for the strategic rollout is a soft launch. Other terms that have been thrown around, though, are also a vesting period. So what I do want to do is really briefly just summarize for you exactly what all of this means. So we each have a holding of Vulcan, which is represented here by a bag. But what we heard yesterday was that there is now a new distribution schedule to Vulcan. So until now, we expected upon the launch of mainnet to simply receive our full bag of Vulcan to do with as we pleased. However, now you will see there is a padlock on that bag. And what we were told in the announcement was that upon the launch of mainnet, there will be a period of this distribution schedule across 5 months, or if you want to call it, a vesting period. And what this means is that actually our Vulcan will be released to us in increments across those first 5 months. And here we see what those increments are. So the first month will be just 5% of our holding will be released to us. The second is 20%. Month 3 will see 25%. Month 4, a further 25%. And finally, on month 5, we will have that final 25% of our bag. And so in effect, by month 5, you will have access to 100% of your Vulcan holding. Now, I will get into the whys and wherefores and the pros and cons of all of this in just a moment. But first of all, it is really important just to clarify one thing. And that is, of course, the all-important passive income streams that you will be entitled to as a Vulcan holder. So what does this mean? The rebasing mechanism, the ability to pull on both the flex pool and the power pool will not, I repeat, will not be affected by this news. So in other words, those facilities, those rewards will still be built on top of your whole 100% holding of Vulcan and will not be reduced in any way throughout this vesting period. You will have full access to those rewards and you will be able to sell them if that's what you so wish to do. So to just really stress, the only difference that this announcement is making is in terms of the amount of Vulcan that you can access at the launch of mainnet. Just to be clear, this is only for current Vulcan investors, those that have sacrificed in order to get their Vulcan. It does not apply to any new holders following the launch of mainnet. So anybody, including you and me, can buy Vulcan upon the launch of mainnet and trade as we wish. This is only for current Vulcan holdings at this point. And I say that's the only difference that this announcement is making, but I in no way wish to diminish the angst that this has caused for some in our community. And it seems that this is an incredibly divisive issue. And we will get to that in just a moment. But before we do, let's jump into perhaps the reasons why this has been brought in, and certainly look at the pros and cons of the announcement that was made yesterday. So the first thing to note on the pros is that this will enable Vulcan to be listed on Tier 1 central exchanges. We have heard previously how important it will be for Vulcan to be listed on these major exchanges. And we have now learned from Brian and Jason that a vesting schedule is quite a normal requirement to be listed on these exchanges. So from that perspective, it seems incredibly important that we do this. The second reason under pros is that having this type of rollout will stabilize the emerging blockchain and allow the thickening of liquidity. And especially we can see how incredibly volatile the environment is for crypto at the moment, and this will add those stabilizing wheels to our Vulcan bike as it is released. The next thing to mention, and this was actually centre stage really in the announcement yesterday, is the importance of trying to instill within holders the culture of holding and earning passive income as opposed to simply selling their bag at the beginning. Now, this has really been prompted, I think, by a lot of discussion within Discord and on YouTube videos of some holders being very clear that they wanted to sell their whole bag on the launch of mainnet. Some with the intention of getting back in and, with a very long-term view. But I think this has sparked concerns about what could potentially be a huge sell-off at the beginning. But also a concern that actually, one of the main things, the unique points about the Vulcan blockchain is about our ability as investors to earn passive income streams, and not just one stream, but several. See my previous videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I think, one of the reasons this plan is being brought in is in effect to enforce us as Vulcan investors to at least experience those passive income streams for a few months, which might change the thinking and actually the whole culture of our investing community. So that's quite an important point there. And the final point to mention here is that, of course, this should encourage upward price movement. And again, this is really linked to building the stability of the whole blockchain, but along with that we should see an escalating price. Why is that? Well, if we are being limited to the ability to sell 5% of our holdings in the first month and then in increments across those next few months, of course that is going to limit the sell pressure. We will have new investors coming in who will buy and sell, of course, and some of those might be huge whales. And I think there's still some concern that, of course, we're going to have volatility. But the point is, if you imagine there is going to be almost like a floor price of perhaps what we have at the moment of about $9, if we are enforced to hold 95% of our holdings, then there is going to be very little that is going to force that price down. And although there may be volatility above that price, in a way we're building in this floor price and the stability of that floor price. And the theory goes that actually there should be an upward trajectory of the price, as opposed to what we may have been faced with, which was huge dips and huge peaks, but a lot of volatility. So we'll see what happens. But of course, there are always some other sides to the coin. And in this one, there is a very, very clear con as opposed to a pro. And that is that individual investors will not have access to their whole Vulcan investment at launch, which has left us really as a community with a very split view. Some very accepting and happy about what's been proposed, but those that are really not happy at all. And of course, they're not happy and are very vocal in Discord because this is not what they signed up to. This is, I think we all accept, a little bit late coming in the day. But going through the reasons that I just have, I think we can see that there's also very clear rationales as to why this is really essential. There has been a lot of drama in Discord, as I said, in this last 24 hours. And some of it tipping into what I see as actually unacceptable stuff. You know, a lot of ranting, a lot of swearing, a lot of just angst. And I think what we have to remember is that no matter how emotional we get about announcements like this, our Discord, yes, is a place where we come together to discuss things as a community, but perhaps more importantly, it is a showcase, a shop window to our community and to our project. And what really concerns me about the last 24 hours is when we do have members of the community that really can't contain themselves, and you know, it involves both sides, then that's not a good look at all. And I think it's very clear that what is being proposed or what is being taken forward, there are some very good and clear reasons for, and will undoubtedly create sustainability for the blockchain, which can only be a good thing. But what is so important, I think, that we all have to remember is there is always more than one perspective to be taken into account. And really, for me, the art in having a Discord that is civil, that is a good place to be, that is a positive place to be, is that we all try really hard to see those other perspectives. We may not agree with them, but being able to see them and appreciate them leads us to a completely different dynamic than the one that we've seen in the last few hours. Now, I don't want to get preachy about any of this, but I think I'll just leave it by saying, I think if we reflect on the last 24 hours, we could probably all agree that we could all just do a little bit better. And also, I don't want to diminish the feelings and the very strong feelings of anybody in the community. As I say, we all each have our own personal perspective based on our own personal circumstances, beliefs, values, and all of that. So I do hear you. My personal perspective on this is actually one that is quite positive. That's not to say that I won't have to change my plan. And if you've seen previous videos that I've made, I've been very clear. I do have my own strategic plan in terms of what I was going to do on mainnet. And that's now going to have to change. And the plans that I had in order of, you know, perhaps paying bills or purchasing things or whatever it might be, they are going to take a little bit longer. I now have a delayed schedule on my own personal aims and targets. However, I can see the bigger picture here. And for me, the change in my plans is not catastrophic. I know for some the effect that this will have is more dramatic. And, you know, just reading some of the comments yesterday, you know, some people, you know, somebody's building a house at the moment and they need access to their funds, etc., etc. I get all of that. I would just say, as we all point out, there is nothing definite, nothing concrete in crypto. It is such a dynamic space and we have to roll with the punches. And the other thing that I would say is that Vulcan is unique and the team are in effect building the bridge as we walk on it. And that's never an easy thing. They're trying to do something very different with Vulcan, something that's never been attempted before, but also they admit themselves they've never built a blockchain. So they are encountering new things probably every day. And sometimes it's very difficult to anticipate things that you don't yet know. In other words, you don't know what you don't know. So I think where we can, let's give the team time to breathe. Let's give them a pat on the back when they need it. Let's also reflect though that this major change is very late in the day and That's why I think it's had the reaction that it's had. And I'm sure on reflection, when we get past this, when we're months beyond the launch of mainnet and we are looking back and laughing, which I think we will, I think the team will also reflect that they maybe could have done things differently along the way. So we are building the bridge as we walk across it. And I, for one, am incredibly happy and still very excited to be stomping across that bridge. Of course, the journey across the bridge is now taking longer than anticipated. But for me, I want that bridge to be as strong as it possibly can. Because let's be clear, the bridge is taking us somewhere that nobody has ever been before. Let's call it the promised land. And I still want to go to that promised land. And I hope to see you there too. But in the meantime, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to finish drinking my chamomile tea. I probably don't need as much tea now. I'm feeling a bit better now that I've talked it all out with you. How do you feel? Let me know in the comments. But I will say goodbye for now. And my dear Vulcans, I will say as I always do, live long in prosperity and cheers.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.